I caught a piece with Joe Rogan, and Joe was talking about Adesanya, and he referred to Adesanya as a little skinny dude. And he was talking about Paulo Costa. And he talked about Paulo and defined him as a big, scary monster. So he said, when you look like a big, scary monster and a little skinny dude comes in and beats you, it can throw you off. Now, let's think about that. Is that what's happening with Paulo Costa? Because there's three ways you can break a guy in a fight. You could break him before the fight. You could break him during the fight, which is the most common, but you can also break a guy after the fight. We have seen this, guys. We've seen this on all levels. There was a gentleman, I can't produce his name for you, but it was like Ranger Ray, and he had some art that he had created. He was the Bruce Lee of some art. He created it. He created the acronym. He was teaching it to people, and he went into the UFC. He had no experience with his art, but he truly in his heart believed it to be true. The referee says, go, smashing machine walk. Mark Kerr walks across the ring, grabs him one time, knees him in the head. The fight is over. That gentleman had a very hard time with life in general. Something that he believed to be true, and he believed it in his heart. He believed in these skills. He believed in his system. He believed in his ability to attack and defend attacks. And when it turned out not to be true, he spoke about this. I'm not out of school here, but it was 30 years ago. And he talked about the drugs and the alcohol in the dark places. He contemplated suicide, all because something he believed to be true got rattled, not just because he lost a sporting competition. He was now questioning himself and everything. So how do I tie that in? Well, I tie that in because it's a real thing, and then I went through it. I had my first ever match, 1997. And I had never even practiced MMA before. As a lifelong wrestler, and I was learning jiu-jitsu the same way as everybody else was, which is you see something on TV, you grab a buddy, you move the coffee table out of the way, and you try to get to that position. But in my head, I was prepared. I'd seen every fight. I had planned. I'm going to come across the round, throw a jab, I'm going to throw a cross like Don Fry, I'm going to throw leg kicks like Marco Huas. I had this whole thing built up. I got in the actual ring. Time to fight. I couldn't find the guy. I could not find, I'm throwing my punches out. Nothing's even close to hitting him. I don't understand. It's this moment that I learned there's something called range. There's something called a setup. Everything I'd seen on TV, just walk at you, boom, boom. And there's other sports where that happens to me too. The only time I see gymnastics is in the Olympics. So I only have one sense for what gymnastics is, which is the world's most beautiful and highest level sport. It's done by teenagers. Anybody can do this. I then caught a gymnastics event that was on the Division I level. It was on some off-brand channel, but I saw it. This is Division I college athletes, the national tournament, the best of the best. It was not the same thing. It was not remotely to the same thing to the Olympics, but that was my first indicator to say, okay, there's levels to this. Things change. What you think might be true because you have some frame of reference in your mind isn't always true, and that can rattle the other person when it's over. Is that what happened with Paulo? Because I've never been of the school that we need to dismiss Paulo Costa. I understood that we tell Izzy Adesanya, great job, that was a great win. I never know that we were going to bury Paulo. Paulo came out and spoke after the fact, said, man, I had a few things going into that fight. And he told a very bizarre story, but we knew that he was being sincere, which was he could not sleep the night before, so he had a bottle of wine. He still could not sleep, so he had a second bottle of wine. He was fighting, he had a hangover. And of all the excuses or weird tales that we've been told, we've never heard that one, and we knew that he was telling the truth, but the question still comes down to why. If you can't sleep the night before a fight to the point that you have to get drunk to try to induce sleep, maybe this isn't for you, maybe. But that's not what I saw from Paulo Costa. I even saw a strength. Am I misinterpreting it, guys? I saw a strength in him able to come out, share this embarrassing moment with us, and tell us why next time's going to be different. Well, when next time finally came along, he missed weight. He missed weight against Vittoria. They had to reschedule it, do it at 205 pounds. And that was like 2 times. I think he missed weight and agreed to 195, but then came back before it was time to go on scale and moved to 205 pounds. I know that I'm close on that, but the point is, why? What happened? Where did you lose the discipline? How are you not making a weight that you've made in every other professional bout? Why is it different, and does it have anything to do with the loss? We're speculating, we're guessing. I think Paulo is a straight-up terror. Now, I got to know Paulo through The Ultimate Fighter, and I saw how hard he worked. I saw how bad he wanted it. So I know that he's got this toughness, and I know that he's a success story. Being tough and mentally holding it together when times get rough is a totally different conversation, and it can rattle you. From the Ranger, who I told you about in the early on UFC days, all the way up to Paulo Costa, myself in between there to some degree, when you believe something is true and you find out you were wrong, you will start to question, what else am I wrong about? What else am I certain are principles and ideals that I can count on in this life when I know I just got that one wrong? It's a process. For me, the process was about 2 weeks. I worked my way through it and realized I need to get in the gym with some coaches and practice this. You don't get good at something just because you saw a whole bunch of pay-per-views. Pretty reasonable conclusion to come through, but I will also admit that was a long 10 days, long 2 weeks. So as it pertains to Paulo Costa, I'm seeing great things here. I've always wanted him to go to 205. He made his run at 185. Rematches, I realize, are a little more common right now than they used to be. There is certainly a path where he could get back to the championship, but it's going to involve one thing, which is being extremely busy. If a year goes by and you've only done one fight, oh, and by the way, it wasn't even in that weight class, you are not one step closer. I don't know if Paulo wants to do that. That's for Paulo to tell us. I just personally, as a guy who likes and believes in Paulo Costa, would like to see him at 205 pounds. I like him to add some years to his career, alleviate some stress, mentally and physically, trying to beat the scale the night before. He's a big, strong guy. Go up to 205 pounds. But it doesn't look like I'm going to get my way. Paulo Costa hasn't spoke to us as much as his manager has, and his manager has spoken in no uncertain terms to let us know his client, Paulo, will be staying at 185 pounds. But who is next and what is the delay? And does that have something to do with what Joe Rogan is talking about? Where when you have a certain image and another guy that doesn't look like he can do the job comes out and does the job effectively and quickly, that it rattles you. Yeah, that probably does. So what? So what if that rattled Paulo? Paulo's a human being. He's got the right to have a dream and a goal and try to pursue it and have to face the next page, which is regret, embarrassment, questioning self. The question is, how long can he do it for? I'll tell my personal story. In and out of there in less than 2 weeks. The Ranger who I referenced earlier told this story 10 years after the night that the match happened and said that he just came out of it. Then you have Paulo Costa, who looks fantastic, who even in his return fight, whether he missed weight, whether he didn't win the fight or not, was still a main event. This is a big deal. This is a big draw. I think that activity is important, but that's between him and his managers. I'm just reflecting on what Joe Rogan said. Is that what's happening? Is that why the Terminator, who is stealing all of the headlines, who was 15-0 and a beautiful record, who was a favorite by some gambling sites the night that he fought Adesanya, is that defeat affecting him psychologically to the point that it's stopping his career? I had not thought of it. I think it's obvious. Once Joe said it, it became all right. I knew it was true as soon as I heard him say it. It was one of those situations, but I do have to look at that and I do have to wonder, and if that is the case, and there's certainly evidence to point toward, only Paulo would know. If that is the case, okay, great. Hit the brakes. Life does not have to stay there. Even your sports, your career, your psychological, it does not have to stay there. It has to be addressed, dealt with, so that you can move on. And I'm ready for him to move on because, frankly, I miss Paulo Costa.